What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing. The Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series will continue its conversation with you concerning the complete history of boxing. There was a 10-round unanimous decision contest that took place at the Chicago Stadium. It was a welterweight contest. Saturday night, March 1st, 1930. The babyface assassin Jimmy McLaurin would defeat Sammy Mendel. Now, McLaurin was 22 years old. He stood 5'6". He was a welterweight with a 67-inch reach. Had a record of 44 wins, 6 losses, 3 draws, and 17 knockouts. As for Sammy Mendel, he was 26 years old. He stood 5'7". He was a welterweight with a 67-inch reach. Had a record of 122 wins, 8 losses, 12 draws, and 26 knockouts. Now, as for Jimmy McLaurin, between November 1st, 1929 and December 13th, 1929, he would defeat Joe Glick twice, Sergeant Sammy Baker, Ray Miller, Ruby Goldstein, and Sammy Mendel. Had the pleasure of meeting Jimmy McLaurin on 2 separate occasions. He told me stories about the contest between him and Benny Leonard, 1932. He told me about the contest between him and Young Corbett III. Young Corbett III was a southpaw. McLaurin would knock him out in 1 round. He would become the welterweight champion of the world. He told me the stories between him and the 3 contests with Barney Ross. You know, Jimmy McLaurin was, I wouldn't say an enigma. I have him in my top 10 welterweights because he packed so much in a short period of time. He was a phenomenal fighter during his reign, and I have so much respect for him. Pops Foster was his manager. He knew him. He wasn't into boxing, but got into boxing because of McLaurin. But Jim McLaurin was an outstanding fighter. I talked about him often, and I will continue talking about Jim McLaurin. Like I said, I have him in my top 10. Great fighter, great fighter. Henry Armstrong, number 1. I have Ray Robinson, 2. Barbados Demon Joe Walcott. I have Jim McLaurin. Of course, you have to put Ray Leonard in terms of his era. He defeated Tommy Hearns, so he would deserve that slot. You can look at Emil Griffith. You can look at so many great welterweights, man. Young Jack Thompson. They were great fighters during that time. Barney Ross. Friday night, March 21st, 1930, Midget Wargas would defeat New York's 15-round decision over Eladio Valdez, black belt, and he would become the New York Sack and Pennsylvania flyweight king. The NBA recognized Frankie Gennaro. The bout was originally scheduled for a tournament. The New York did not recognize a fighter over the age, or under the age of 19, I should say. He couldn't fight over 6 rounds during that time. That was the rule. The black belt was 24 years old. He stood 5'3.5". He was a flyweight, had a record of 162 total bouts. 121 wins, 19 losses, 13 draws, and 20 knockouts. Midget Wargas was 19 years old. He stood 5'3.5". He was a flyweight with a 65.5-inch reach. Now, between April 11th, 1924 and November 17th, 1928, Black Bill fought 15 fights. He was on a 15-fight winning streak, 14 wins, and won no decision contest. Between December 12th, 1928 and March 1st, 1930, he had 25 wins. Featherweight future champion Kid Chocolate defeats Al Ridgway in 2 rounds, scheduled for 10. That was on that card. Now, Black Belt, his name was Eladio Valdez. He was born May 1st, 1905 in Havana, Cuba. He died April 14th, 1933 in Havana, Cuba. Fought from 1920 to 1930. Had a record of 162 total bouts, 123 wins. Now, let me just mention one thing to you about this man. Eladio Valdez, a lot of people don't understand how influenced he was, or influential, if that's a word, over Kid Chocolate and Kid Gavilan and Ray Robinson and Joe Louis and Henry Armstrong. I mean, they all admired Black Bill. Black Bill was one of the first fighters at that time. He was a tailor-made man. Always wore 3-piece suits, had that conch in his hair, pocket watch. He had lapels. He had wingtip shoes, always a pocket square, and he was good with the ladies. You know, he really knew his game, and he was something, a small man, but he had it going, man, and everybody admired Black Bill. Even William Landon Jones admired him as well, Gorilla Jones. So he was something else. You have to give him a lot of credit. July 20th, 1925, October 24th, 1925. Bill would defeat Corporate Izzy Schwartz in 10 rounds. Twice. Corporate Izzy Schwartz, November 20th of 1928. Great fighter was Black Bill, but we're talking about a fighter by the name of Midget Wargas who took on Black Bill, and he would defeat him and win the New York Sack. It was a tournament. And they wanted to know who the king of the flyweight division was. Pancho Villa had passed away in 1925. And that would be the same year that Benny Leonard would retire because he would break his hand in a contest with a Philadelphia southpaw by the name of Lou Tendler. So that was a fascinating year. There was a lot of great years in the 1920s, but that was a great fight. We'll look at one more fight, and I think we'll call it. So Friday night, March 28th, 1930, Jimmy McLaurin would face Young Jack Thompson. Young Jack Thompson, who was he? His name was Cecil Lewis Thompson. He was born August 17th, 1904 in Los Angeles, California. He died April 11th, 1946. He was 41 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Los Angeles, California. He fought for 10 years. Stood 5 foot 8 inches. He was a welterweight and fought from 1922 to 1932. He had a record of 122 bouts, 79 wins, 31 losses, 49 knockouts, and he was stopped 3 times himself. It was 16,798 spectators that attended the New York Madison Square Garden to see both these men. The referee was Jim Crawley. Now, McLaurin was 22 years old. He stood 5 foot 6 inches. He was a welterweight with a 67-inch reach, had a record of 45 wins, 6 losses, 3 draws, and 17 knockouts. As for Young Jack Thompson, he was 25 years old. He stood 5 foot 8 inches. He was a welterweight with a 65-inch reach. 23. My God. 23 losses at that time. And then there was a lot of fights that he fought that he had to throw the fight. And he had 39 knockouts. But you see, again, and I don't want to go off topic here, black fighters always got the shaft in entire boxing history. And I say it and I move past it because I don't want to pollute the conversation. But it is what it is, And when you deep dive into boxing and you understand the sport, you understand the lineage of the sport, you know what boxing is. And it's unfortunate. McLaurin hit Thompson low. And he hit him low more than 5 times. McLaurin even broke his hand in this process. And Young Jack Thompson would defeat Jackie Fields, 15 rounds in Detroit. He would win the NBA World Welterweight Championship crown, 15-round bout, when he held the Olympic Stadium in Detroit. He was in the ring with Jackie Fields so many times. Thompson was 25 years old. He stood 5 foot 8 inches at welterweight, 1922 to 1932. Fields was 22 years old. He stood 5 foot 7.5 inches at welterweight. He had a 69-inch reach, fought from 1925 to 1933. He had a record of 56 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, and 22 knockouts. Jackie Fields, who was he? His name was Jacob Finkelstein. He was born February 9th, 1908 in Chicago, Illinois. He died June 3rd, 1987 in Los Angeles, California. Fought from 1925 to 1933. Had a record of 84 total bouts, 72 wins, 9 losses, 31 knockouts. Let me tell you something about Jackie Fields. I had the pleasure of meeting him. He was something else. He would go over to Las Vegas, and he would wind up dying in Los Angeles, California. But he was something else. He really was. He was in the ring with Lou Bullard and King Tut, Young Terry from Trenton, New Jersey, Sam Bruce, a very good black fighter, Tommy Freeman, who was a champion, Baby Joe Gans, Young Corbett III, Vince Dundee, William Gorilla Jones, just to name a few. Jackie Fields was an outstanding fighter. Let me rest my brain. All this is at the top of the head, and I got to drink some water before I pass out. Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff Series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Thanks for listening. Be well, and I'll see you in the next video. The complete history of boxing will continue. Peace.